Terry Wilson always claimed he simply reacted to Italian aggression towards Liverpool supporters inside Block Z. 20 years later, he stands by that story.
No one wanted any trouble, so it was great. And then as we were in there singing and that, our attention was being drawn to things that were happening in Z section.
Was a young lad wearing a Liverpool shirt. He was between 8 and 12 years old, and he was just getting destroyed by Italian men.
We did get pretty angry from the point of what's going on, who are these people fighting here, why are they fighting? So the reaction, our immediate reaction, was pull the fence down, get over there to the assistance of our supporters.
So it was one of them. Either we stay there and let the Italians, really batter the Liverpool fans, or go over there, try and help them do something about it.
Several waves of Liverpool fans chased the Juventus fans in Block Z. Some ran onto the far end of their terrace. Others escaped onto the track around the pitch. The gendarmes fled with them. A day of celebrations was fast unravelling. In their panic, a big number of Italians had run towards the farthest lower corner of Block Z, where they packed up against a wall and started trampling on each other. Armando, Danilo, Guido and Domenico were in the thick of it. The danger of the situation was just starting to dawn on them.
After just a couple of minutes, I felt my trainers slip off, sucked right off my feet. I realized I was barefoot. My feet weren't even touching the ground.
Your shoes don't just come off for no reason. We were packed in so tightly together, like sardines, you couldn't move a muscle. That's how it was. You didn't even have the time to think.
You don't think about anything in that situation. I couldn't think about anything. You just think everyone's going to spread out soon and everything will get back to normal.
7:30, 3/4 of an hour before the scheduled kick-off time. Back in Italy, Mrs. Martelli, a school teacher, was attending a meeting about the end-of-year exams.
All of a sudden, at about 7:30, something came over me. I couldn't breathe. And yet the window was open. There was plenty of fresh air. But I didn't feel well. So I got up. My colleague behind me grabbed my jacket and said, "What are you doing, Martelli? The principal is still speaking."
Social worker Martine Bolu was on standby duty at the fire brigade headquarters when the unexpected news came in. She wrote a diary about the night as a kind of therapy, and she told us that until now she'd never reread it.
At 7:30, no one rushed to answer the phone. We were used to hearing it ring around the clock for all sorts of reasons, depending on who was calling. Finally, Chris got up, not out of a particular desire, but simply because she was the person sitting closest to the door. And unexpectedly she screams. She repeats herself once, twice, 3 times. She says, but that's impossible. We all say the same thing. It must be a joke. We ask if she's sure. See for yourselves, she says. Just turn on the radio, the television.
7:31 and 20 seconds is when the emergency service radio first reported that a wall had collapsed. A man with a yellow shirt frantically tries to help. He's a Liverpool fan. He wouldn't be interviewed because the memories are too painful. Contrary to what was assumed that night, and what is often still assumed, it wasn't the collapse of the wall that caused the 39 deaths. The collapse actually released pressure and allowed fans trapped up against the wall to escape. The dead died from suffocation. They lost their balance in the pushing and shoving, fell, and were trampled by the others.
Just human beings just come over like water, unbroken, and thuds, just thuds. They made a noise, but you know, it's just a quiet noise, but the screaming.
Seconds seemed like hours, while the disorganized police and gendarmerie struggled to intervene in any coherent way.
I held my wife's hand as long as I could, and then at a certain point I realized I wasn't holding it anymore, and I was lying on the ground.
I was stuck under there for 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes. I couldn't tell you exactly, because the minutes felt like an eternity. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe. I'd lost my glasses, so my vision was blurred, and I couldn't really see anything. In those moments, many things passed through my mind. The only thing I remember thinking was, I've come to Brussels to die for the sake of a football match.
50 metres from Block Z, in the VIP hall, a reception was underway. Marcel Roosens and his VIPs were totally unaware of what was happening.
A couple of minutes before the game was due to start, a whole group of guests from the European Union still hadn't arrived. But everything seemed fairly normal, although of course it was very noisy outside. At a certain point I went out, wondering whether these EU people would ever turn up. I saw 3 or 4 cars arrive. I thought, there they are. But they had barely pulled up when they left again. I couldn't understand what was happening. And just then, people started to come running down the stairs, from the grandstand into this hall, people I didn't recognize. They were fleeing from Block Z.
The chaos on the terraces was spreading. Fans from Block Z burst into the VIP hall. The Italian minister Gianni de Michelis saw it happening.
I
remember we drove in. Everything seemed normal. The car stopped right in front of the entrance to the VIP hall. I got out. Suddenly, a crowd of people came running towards me. They stopped me, shouting, "Minister, help us." It was just awful. There were a lot of them.